Hello, welcome to Celi-Yap, where we yap about our different experiences with celiac disease.
Celi-Yap.
I'm Kelsey,
And I'm Doran.
and we're the communications interns for Beyond Celiac, and we are here to relate to you and inform you about what life with celiac disease is like for us.
If you aren't familiar, celiac disease is a serious genetic autoimmune disease that damages the small intestine's villi and impairs the body's absorption of nutrients from food, as quoted from Beyond Celiac.
And the only way to combat celiac disease at this time is by maintaining a 100% gluten-free diet.
Yes. So for today's topic, we're just going to do a general overview of celiac disease and what it's like for each of us and the differences.
Yeah. So we both have pretty different stories about how we learned about our diagnosis. Doran, do you want to go first? How did you learn about the fact that you had celiac disease?
Yeah, I don't even remember when I learned because I was maybe one. I'm not really sure. I was very, very, very young because my whole family pretty much has it at this point. At that point, it was just my nana and my sister were diagnosed. And so then they were like, let's just test him. And sure enough, I in fact had it. So I've had it all my life. What about you?
I actually got diagnosed like 2.5 years ago. It was during my freshman year of college, so I was 18 years old. So kind of after I had already gotten my life set up, but I feel like it was a decently convenient time, I guess, because I was able to have a pretty normal childhood, I suppose, but as an adult, I was kind of able to take control. But it's definitely a different type of experience than knowing it your whole life. How did you learn about gluten and who helped you along your way?
Right, because I have had it my whole life. I had my parents to kind of guide me and teach me along the way, which we can go into depth later. But basically, there was a lot of training us to stand up for ourselves and explain to us, so this is what you can eat, this is what you can't eat. And I feel like it wasn't that hard because I didn't know any different. You know, it wasn't like I feel like a lot of stuff with kids, you for certain like English language, you just grow up knowing it because you've been doing it your whole life. That's kind of what I was doing here. It wasn't yes, there was training and stuff, but I just kind of that was my life, that was it. But for you, I mean, that had to have been a lot harder and different because I mean, not only are you dealing with college and meeting all these new people, et cetera, but you're now also realizing that you have this whole new lifestyle that you have to start taking and learning about. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it's super interesting and kind of scary that I learned about it in college because my main source of information for learning how to be gluten-free was honestly influencers and Instagram. I learned so much just by watching content about it, and sure, I read certain articles and I read the packet my doctors gave me that's this is what gluten is, but I honestly learned a lot about advocacy and all that stuff from influencers. And also, since I got diagnosed in college, my parents didn't really know that much about it because no one in my family has celiac disease except for me. They both got tested after I got diagnosed, but as they should. But neither of them have it, and we don't know anybody else in our family who has it. So I definitely learned a lot from the internet. So I think it's super important that people are posting things that are helpful and accurate and not spreading myths. But I had a mostly good experience with that, trying to find people online in my local area to find restaurants, and also just learning what questions to actually ask the waiter, or if you go to restaurants and stuff. But it took a long time. I've had it for 2.5 years now, and there's still things I come across where I'm whoa, I hadn't even thought about that yet. So I'm still learning, but it's definitely it's super cool that we have the internet and so many resources and people advocating for it now. So I definitely didn't struggle too much, but it was crazy to be all this information thrown at you at once.
Right. Yeah. On top of college, on top of this, you have a whole that would be very hard and stressful, I think, for me.
Totally.
But once you what got you to get tested? What was that process like? Because that happened in your life, in the middle of your life.
Yeah, so kind of in the end of my last year of high school, I was feeling just really fatigued all the time, and I feel like in high school, obviously you're kind of burnt out, like you're stressed with a lot of different things. It's kind of a crazy time of life. So I definitely struggled most with like fatigue. I would take naps every single day. I would feel just like low energy, which is like kind of weird for a high school student because you're supposed to be like super excited to like do stuff and you have
Yeah.
freedom for once.
Yeah.
So I actually got like a blood test and I was iron deficient. So they thought that was the root cause, which I was iron deficient because my villi were not absorbing iron because of celiac disease. But I didn't know that at the time. So I got like on a super high dose of like iron that I was taking. And they tested me again a few months later and they're like, your iron looks great. And I'm like, honestly, I feel worse. I didn't really have gastro issues. It was mostly just like fatigue, and I'd sometimes get different like headaches and stuff like that, but I was just sleeping a lot, and eventually I got blood tested for the celiac disease indicator, and then I got the actual endoscopy to like check in my small intestine. They were like, yep, you have this. And I was like, you know what, at least I'm gonna feel better. So
Right.
I don't know. At first during my diagnosis, I actually feel like I dealt with it super well. I was like, I was more excited than anything. I was like, at least I'm not gonna sleep all day anymore. And then like after a year, I was like, okay, this is like real and this is how my life is. So like it took a
Yeah.
while to settle in, but that's okay.
Right.
Do
Especially
you have any like no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, especially because you have like different like I feel like when people think of the standard symptoms, they do think of like, like vomiting, diarrhea, like all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that
Totally.
wasn't exactly your story, and I feel like that probably made it a little harder too, because I don't know, was it hard to find people online that were like to see that, like see yourself in all these influencers or etc.
Yeah, it was super interesting because I feel like a lot of people share about like more gastro issues, like bloating, especially. I feel like, especially in the women's space of celiac, you see a lot of people like sharing that and being like, hey, this is what my body looks like because of a genetic autoimmune disease. Like,
Yeah.
this is how I look, this is how I feel. So I definitely didn't see as much about that, but also I remember like reading all the symptoms of like celiac disease and seeing how many different things there are, and
Yeah.
that was just super shocking to me. Are there any symptoms that you dealt with? I know you got diagnosed earlier in life, but with like managing the gluten-free diet?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. I think one of the most frustrating things about, I mean, there's so many frustrating things, but one of the most frustrating things I find is I don't know if like my symptoms are just other symptoms or if they are because of my celiac disease. But I think that there have been times where like I'm eating a meal at a restaurant, all of a sudden I can just my body just shuts down. I'm not really, it's not that I'm full, but it's not like I just don't want to eat this anymore. I feel like my mood just crashes, everything. Like, it's weird that it happens that quick, but I can feel like I just feel something's wrong. And then sure enough, maybe later that day I'm sitting on the toilet for the rest of the night. So like it's kind of, I think I have a bit more of the standard symptoms that you would see. But I've been very lucky, I think, to not have had as many or as that common, just because I've been doing this my whole life. But and I do keep a strict diet.
Yes, me too. I think that's super
Yeah.
important as well. Like when I was first learning about celiac and learning about like how important is it to actually avoid cross contact, and it's like
Right.
so important, and
Hmm.
it's hard too because I haven't had like a super bad exposure or experience yet, so I'm not sure like how symptomatic I am, but it's still like so important for all the long-term effects that it can have. So I definitely feel
Yeah.
you on the confusion as well, because sometimes it's just like, well, I don't feel good today, but you never really
Right.
know exactly what it is.
And then if it is something like, if you did get glutened, like obviously I want to like fix whatever the source was, but I'm not quite sure if I got glutened. And like, especially if we'll get to roommates on another episode, but like I don't want to go accuse someone and be like, you just glutened me, and like turns out I actually wasn't glutened, I just had like a bad carrot. Like I don't want that to be like my, like I don't want to like get mad at someone for something they didn't do. So that also kind of, there's a whole other aspect to it too. um but yeah,
Yeah.
I just wish you could know. I wish you could like, but oh well.
Yeah. Are there any like strategies you use during your day to day to try to like avoid being glutened, or any like suggestions that you have or things that you do to like try to keep yourself safe?
Yeah, I think one thing that I do a lot is I always have food on me, no matter what I'm doing, no matter where I'm going, pretty much. Unless I'm like going to a grocery store, then I'm fine. But like if I'm going to some event, like I'm gonna bring a little bar. I'm gonna bring some candy, maybe something, just something a little small that can get me through a little bit. I'm not gonna pack a whole meal, although if there is lunch, I will pack a meal. But I just think being prepared is the easiest way to do it. And then if someone happens to have something safe for you, great. But I feel like that's kind of been my go-to thing. What about you?
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of the time if I'm hanging out with friends or something like that, I usually just try to eat before. I don't know. I'd rather like cook something in my own home, but obviously if you're doing something more long term, I also
Right.
do camping a lot, so that type of stuff like requires a lot more planning, so I definitely
Hmm.
like to bring my own food as well. But a lot of times I usually just eat before, and if my friends want to go somewhere that I can't eat, I'll be happy to hang out with them and just like get a drink instead and just like have a little diet coke and spend time with people. I think kind of the thing I've been trying to focus on more is like not letting it get in the way of things.
Yeah.
Like especially when making like new friends and stuff like that, it's kind of scary to be like, "Oh, can I bring my own food?" But you have to do what you have to do, or like,
Right.
"Hey, I'm not going to eat, but like I still want to hang out." So, I
Yeah.
don't know. I think a lot of like the advocacy comes there too. So, I don't know. I think a lot of it's just like I don't know, finding comfort in like I actually just want to go do this, so the food doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I feel like what you're saying is a good litmus test too. Like if this like new friend isn't gonna like that, well, there's a sign. Maybe you shouldn't be friends with them. Like I don't know. There's like something to be said about that, and like a good friend would totally understand that and not even question it. I feel like, um,
Totally. And I also feel like I've found a lot of friends who have different like autoimmune conditions and things like that. And it's a lot of like kind of a safety net, honestly, where they're like, I know I have to do certain things for my body and you have to do certain things for you. And that's
yeah,
okay. Like, I have a few friends with type 1 diabetes and like they're always monitoring their stuff. I'm always monitoring my stuff and we're good.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, but think about what we're saying about like how we take it so seriously, and it really is a lot of this check-in. I mean, there is a lot of stuff out there about there's people that go gluten free just to be gluten free, and there's like the fad diet, and I think that's kind of a controversial topic. I feel like, but what do you think about that when you see people like that out there?
you know what? I really do try to be pretty grateful for the fad diet
Okay.
just because, like, if I think about it, like, how many restaurants would actually label gluten free? And I love going out to restaurants.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the things I really tried to do a lot, even though I have celiac disease.
Mhm.
But I really do think that a lot of things wouldn't be labeled if there wasn't like a trend for the diet as well. But it's definitely so frustrating when you go to a restaurant, which just happened to me recently, and they had like a gluten friendly menu, and every single thing was fried in the same fryer as something else. And I'm
Right.
like, there's not a single salad. Like, are you kidding me right now? There's not a single thing I could eat off of this menu that you like went out of your way to make for the
Yeah.
fad diet or whatever. So it's definitely frustrating at the same time. But like, I really try to be like, there are more options because people want to eat gluten free, but it probably helps some people as well. There is also like gluten intolerance and all that stuff, but
Right.
that's separate from
True.
celiac. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel both ways on it. I definitely understand why it's controversial because I'm like, sometimes it seems helpful and sometimes it does not. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I feel like I think my go-to is just to be like, because like I feel like it does like I feel like there is such an annoying stigma or stereotype that like we're being dramatic about making all these people be careful around us, and all this stuff, and that we don't need that. And I feel like I don't want to I just and I feel like it frustrates me that I feel like there are probably some people out there that take it that seriously when they really are just doing it for fun, kind of. And I feel like, or I don't even think there is that many people that do that. I think that just is like the people know that that's a thing. They know that people are doing it as a fad, and so I think it kind of I get worried that that kind of devalues us a little bit and like our struggles, which might not even be true. But I think you have a really good point about how well known it's become, and I think there's something to be said about that. But I also think I feel like there's some restaurants, some places that also just don't understand necessarily what gluten free is or what gluten friendly is, because you see gluten friendly a lot, I feel like. And this is more just an issue of education, I think, rather than the fad diets. But I think there have been places, that are like, oh yeah, this is gluten free, and then once you prod a little further, you find out no, it's not. I mean, maybe it's safe for the people that aren't celiac, but like I actually really just can't eat that. And I feel like that's where I get some of my frustrations from, I think, when stuff like that happens and it gets confused with the lines being blurred in restaurants and stuff.
Totally. Do you have any favorite foods that you always bring in your snack bag, or anything that you always like your go-tos being gluten
Yeah.
free?
I mean, I love a good little candy that I can eat. I'm not gonna endorse any brands or anything, but I think a nice little candy just to get my little sugar up a little bit, or sometimes a protein bar. I'm partial to mint. I love mint, so I like my mint protein bars. Those are really good. But I I get some nuts, which you have to be careful with that. You always have to ask, like, is there anyone allergic? But as long as it's safe, I love to have some nuts, or if I'm feeling fun, maybe some chocolate covered nuts. But yeah, I know. Is that
Wow.
too crazy? What about you though?
I don't know, but you're gluten free. Aren't you like super healthy? Like,
I know exactly. That's why I'm on this actually, not because of celiac disease. It's because it's just really healthy for you.
oh, I'm just kidding. That makes me so mad when people are like, "Oh, you're gluten free. Are you so healthy?" Like, I'm just like anyone else. Like, I care about my health, but like, if I'm gonna have some chocolate, I'm gonna have some chocolate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like me and my sister have always complained about that, saying that like if like you could argue that if honestly it's less healthy to be gluten free, just because I feel like a lot of foods, I think a lot of brands, they put in a lot of sugar to make it taste better, and I feel like there's that, but there's also like when you're gluten free, especially like I feel like for my experience, for me and my sister, since we've had celiac since pretty much birth. Whenever we see something new or a new brand or like something that they finally have turned gluten free, we're always like, oh, we have to get it, we have to get it. And so then I feel like then I mean, for a moment there was a time where there were so many new brands constantly. So we just had so many cookies, so much like crackers and stuff and all this stuff. And I feel like that, I mean, then you're eating more sweets than you're eating. So I feel like there is a lot of moments where it's like I don't really know if it is healthier. I feel like honestly for me it feels like it's actually the cause of more sugar. But I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
totally agree. And if I'm in like a new place, or if I'm just like walking around and I see like gluten-free bakery or something like that, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I have to go in." And that's the whole thing of itself. There's so many options. Like, oh my gosh, it's so overwhelming, but I
Yes.
always am like, "Oh, I need to go." Like, "Ooh, cupcakes I can eat. Yummy, yummy, yummy."
I know.
But I don't know, it adds whimsy to the gluten-free diet, I guess.
Yeah, but you raise a fair point. Like there are really so many options. Like I'm not used to that. Like I go into the grocery store and I have my little section and I'm like, oh, love it. Yep, I get like I know what I like. I get what I like. Which by the way, little side thing here. I don't like when grocery stores mix the gluten-free foods in with the rest of the foods in the aisles, because then I don't I like when there's just a gluten-free section and that's all of them, because then I know where to go, and then also if there's a new brand, I know where I'll see them immediately. Whereas when they're mixed in, like I get that they want us to have a more normal shopping experience, but low key, I don't want that. Um, but back to what I was saying. But the bakery is, yeah, that's like I have my little section, and then I go to the bakery and literally 100% gluten free. I can eat every single thing. Like I'm like, there is no way. What? It's just overwhelming. I never know what to choose. But yeah, do you feel similarly with the grocery store thing, or are you of a different mind?
Yeah, and I actually saw this video the other day. I don't remember who made it, but I saw a video like being gluten free is basically being on a constant scavenger hunt, because they like spread each little thing around out the grocery store, which is sometimes fun, but if you've already had a long day, I totally agree with you. It's like hard to have to go around everywhere else. But
Yeah.
I definitely I definitely struggle with options too on like a menu or something when I'm going out. I'm like, okay, well this thing isn't fried in the same fryer and it
Hmm.
says gluten free, and I talk to the waiter and it feels good. I'm like, okay, great. But if it's like a whole menu, it's like, oh my gosh, I have to read all these different things. What do I
Right.
want? And I'm not a picky eater, so it's sometimes just easier for them to tell me what to
Right.
do. So who even knows? Since you have been gluten free your whole life, was there ever something you wish you got to try, or have you always been like pretty comfortable in it?
It's a good question. I feel like, well, one thing I feel like that was for a while, it was Kit Kats. That was something I always wanted to try. Um, and because everyone loved them, like that was like the favorite candy, I feel like, and I was like, oh. So that was kind of like Halloween. I feel like I remember that was like, I would never get a Kit Kat, I would always give it to a friend. Like there was just like certain candies that we would, or my parents, they would take, that way they didn't have to secretly steal from ours, they could just take the ones we couldn't have. But I feel like there were just certain candies was a big thing, but also I feel like I hear, because my Nana got diagnosed midway through her life also, and she says the thing she misses the most is donuts. And so I feel like I hear that, I'm like, okay, well, what am I missing? So I think there's definitely something to be said, like I'm curious about that, about like what a real, quote unquote real, donut is supposed to taste like. I don't really know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, and I think there's also just a lot of stuff with bread. I feel like there's a lot of like times where people are like, oh, you have to use this kind of bread with this kind of sandwich and this kind of thing. And I mean, like, I haven't really, I've started to get that a little bit more nowadays, but like, I still don't kind of get it. I'm like, what could be so different about these breads that's like making it all this better? Like, I just don't get it. But I don't know. That's just me. But I'm going to flip this on you now, because since you were diagnosed midway through, what stuff do you miss that you used to be able to eat?
Yeah, I feel like as you were saying earlier, there's a lot of new products that have come out that kind of help like you not feel as like you're missing out as much.
Right.
The first thing I realized was like dumplings, but there are a couple like frozen ones you can get now, but I definitely love like just a nice warm dumpling. Like those were kind of my favorite things like at restaurants or for like appetizers and stuff.
Yeah.
So I definitely miss that. I was never big on bread. It's actually really funny. I wonder if this was the celiac in me speaking as a kid, but I used to like take the buns off of my burgers just because I was like, the bread is a waste of space. Like, I want the flavor. Like, I genuinely would do that as a kid.
Oh
And
my God.
I don't even know if I had celiac at that like point in time, but I would be like, bread's a waste of space.
It
So
was
you know what?
foreshadowing.
Like, I'm okay with the lettuce wrap, like I promise. I've been doing that since I was a kid. But I think I just miss like the convenience, like just being able to like go somewhere super quick or like fast food and stuff like that. But there's nothing that I like think there isn't a good enough replacement for. And I'm also pretty into like cooking and stuff, so, and baking. So if there's ever something I really, really want, I will definitely make it. I've seen people making dumplings out of rice paper a lot recently on like my social media. Yeah, like using that as the wrapper instead of like a gluten wrapper. And I haven't tried it yet, but I think that'll fill the void.
Wait, yeah, that sounds so interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I would definitely try it.
I kind of want to ask a similar question to that, which is like, so that was about gluten foods you miss, but like, what just in general do you feel like you miss the most about being able to eat gluten? Because I feel like a lot of things just have changed socially as well, and just in general.
Yeah, totally. I think the one thing is that I don't have a lot of like friends in my day-to-day life that have celiac disease. Like there's one other guy in like my broader friend group who has it, but I don't have like female friends who have it. So I feel like a lot of it's just like the social isolation, and obviously like my family doesn't have it or anything like that. And I'm also an only child.
Oh.
So just it's just a lot of like going through this experience kind of on your own. But that's why I've appreciated like the internet and like being able to like see other people who live the same lifestyle as me. I think that's like helped a lot, but definitely like the social aspect of like feeling a little bit more isolated than I did before, but at the same time, like I have good people in my life, so it kind of makes up for it. But that's kind of the one thing I miss is just like the relatability. Also, I used to get crumble cookie every week when they would do the different flavors, and honestly, I have no idea what that led to, but it could have been part of the cause. But like just like the social aspect of like my friends and I would try all the flavors every single week, and now it's like obviously I'm not doing that, but I feel like it's just kind of the social part of that. And then also in college, like dining halls and stuff like that, and just like restricting. So I don't know, I feel like the main part is just the social, like not having somebody in the same boat with you, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Since you got diagnosed earlier, was there like a certain age or stage of life that was like easier or harder for you to be gluten-free in? Was there anyone that was like a bigger struggle, or where you felt like the burden of celiac disease more, or ones that you thrived in more?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure the hardest time was freshman year of college, I think. I feel like I got a little bit of a tease of that leading into it because I feel like I went on a bunch of like fun senior trips from after high school, and I feel like that was when I had to start teaching people more, like I had friends and they knew about it, but like we were gonna be like
Right.
in the same house for a little bit, so I had to teach them, and I feel like that was a little taste. And then in college it became a little bit bigger because I had roommates now, and I had, well, freshman year I didn't have a kitchen yet, so that wasn't really an issue. But what, also we'll get to roommates later. But I feel like it was just a lot harder because I was used to just having friends that met me as that, and they knew that, and it was just like one at a time. I was dealing with teaching these friends celiac disease, but this time I was going to college all on my own, meeting a bunch of new people and having to explain to all of them at once, basically being like, this is what I have and this is what's going on. And I feel like that definitely has a certain heavier burden almost, and a little bit more overwhelming than I was used to. And also just like having to trust certain things like a dining hall, like for my day-to-day meals, like that was different. Like I was so used to like always my home is my safe space and I can trust it, whatever, but now I'm trusting these other people, these strangers, to daily, more 3 times a day, feed me and keep it safe. And I had some issues. I had a couple issues with the dining hall, but that's another thing I feel like we can talk about in another episode. But yeah, I think that was a very tough time for me. I think if there was a better time, I don't know. I feel like at the same time, also though, college was kind of great because I feel like I had more agency on my own. I was getting my own groceries now. I could really think about what do I want to make? What do I want to try? What do I want to learn how to make? And I feel like that at the same time is also like one of the highlights I feel like of that I've experienced so far. But yeah,
Yeah, there's definitely highs and lows to the whole like college aspect. Like,
right,
yeah, part of me is definitely grateful that I got to experience college with celiac because I had to already like advocate for myself and stuff like that, and I was
yeah,
meeting new people. But yeah, definitely, I totally relate to you on having to teach everyone at once. I mean, college
right,
is like crazy because you're meeting everybody at
yeah.
the same time, and then you also have to explain this whole autoimmune condition to everybody you're meeting. And I totally relate to you on that, especially like getting diagnosed in college, but also just like switching stages of life. Like that's just, it's
Yeah.
so different to deal with this on top of everything else that's already going on in your life.
Yeah, I mean that reminds me, like, yeah, you have like this happened at a crazy time for you. I mean, like, so like, did that affect things with you in terms of just like socially, like not without getting too much into the friends stuff, so we can do that later. But like, yeah, what was that? What was the timing? Like, was that optimal? Do you think for you, or like,
It was super interesting. Like, I think the actual diagnosis wasn't too inconvenient at that stage of life because I was old enough to understand it, and I was also old enough to like be almost grateful for it in a way
yeah,
that didn't last forever. Obviously, I still struggle with certain things, but like when I first got diagnosed, it definitely helped. But I do think like struggling with the undiagnosed celiac disease mostly during freshman year of college was like definitely hurt me a lot because I was sleeping all day in the dorm when everybody wants to go out. It's like our first time of freedom and everybody wants to like go to these parties or even just like go hang out, and I'm just
hmm,
like I need to be asleep in my
yeah,
dorm room. And luckily I had a really like good roommate who understood, but it was also like I feel like the fatigue part before I was diagnosed was really hard at that stage of life, but the actual diagnosis, since I was able to understand it at that age, I think it's definitely not the worst like time to have to learn something new.
yeah.
But yeah, how did it affect you in grade school or like when you were younger?
I feel like I was constantly, well, because I feel like I don't know what a lot of people experience as their lunches at like grade school. I don't know how people do those, but at least in my school, you bought your lunch there pretty much, but you could also pack. And I was packing every day, of course, because I mean, I was not. They did not
Yeah.
have anything I could eat,
No,
and
I
like,
can't imagine.
right. I wouldn't have expected them to either. But there was like I was at least earlier in elementary school. I think they would place me at the allergy table, which meant that I was also with students that couldn't eat peanuts, or it's mainly peanuts was the main one, but so that meant I couldn't have my PB and
Yeah.
J, and so then I had to watch what I was eating too. And so it was kind of a mutual thing. Although, now that I think about it, I doubt the people with peanut allergies were eating gluten-free. I can't remember, but like that would be really shocking if
Right.
they were doing that. So, but I guess it's because the peanut allergy is a little different. So,
Yeah, it's like so much more immediately a
right.
problem versus like gluten free. It's more like long term, but still really bad for
But
you.
also, I think certain if you're really allergic, you could like it could be like you can't even smell it. I know that's a thing with peanuts, but like you don't
Totally.
have that with gluten free with celiac disease, and so I think. But then at that point, I think it was also just like, well, then if he's eating gluten, why am I even here? Like, why can't I just be everywhere else? I think eventually I stopped sitting there. But yeah, I mean, I was always packing my lunch every single day. That was never a question. And I don't know if this might not be that related to celiac disease, but like, I think it comes with agency a little bit is that I was always packing my own lunch too. I think that was a kind of like something that I do like that I feel like celiac had a hand in teaching me was, yeah, I learned agency at a younger age because of my celiac disease, but I also learned that through packing my own lunch, because
Right.
they're like, you're gonna be doing this, you might as well get used to it, like you might as well figure out what you're doing. So like
Right.
I like as early as I can remember I was making my own lunch, and I feel like I like that a lot. I feel like it gave me more choice when I already didn't have that much choice, you know. But
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah. And now it leads to you always bring your own bag of snacks everywhere and you're packing that. So there you
Yes,
go.
yes, which
Building the good habits.
yes, which I do not share. Any of my friends know I don't share my snacks. I arrive to the function with my bag and I go, I'm setting a boundary. I will not be sharing any of these. And they all laugh and I'm like, I'm serious actually. And for those who don't know, I will explain to them that I have
Yes.
celiac disease, et cetera, et cetera. Because, but it's like, I mean, I can't eat your snacks. Gluten-free stuff is
Right.
expensive. So yeah, that's what I do. But one of my friends recently, she started to, she's like, I want to have snacks specifically for you at my place. So I'll let her have some of mine.
Aw, that's so sweet. Yeah, I totally get you on the not sharing thing. I accidentally fell into this trap where, a lot of times friends ask you, hey, want to go get lunch? Hey, want to go get this? And I have decided that it's a lot more convenient for me to be like, can we get like coffee or a drink or something like that? Just because a lot of times it's easier to find gluten free options for like drinks and stuff. But it's kind of like backfired because every single time a friend is like, ooh, can I try yours? Can I have a sip? And I'm like,
No.
no. I'm like, no, you may not. It's so hard to like say it seriously because I'm like, I'm serious. I'm like, no,
Right.
no, you may not. You are not putting your mouth on this straw. Absolutely not. But then also like not saying that in a way like, no, like
Right.
just being like, no, no, thank you. Like,
Yeah.
unless you really want to go get your own straw and like you're really careful or I'll give you the last sip if you want to try it that bad. But I
Right.
sometimes I like am scared of that coming up and I'm like, no. I think that's the one thing they don't teach you, or they didn't teach me at least, because I learned later in life. You probably learned how to set boundaries a lot earlier on that stuff than I did. But I'm like, no.
Right. Yeah, but I feel like it can be hard to remember that, like, yeah, that's valid to say all that. It's valid to set your boundary. It's valid.
Totally.
I mean, you have to, I think, for your own well-being.
Yeah,
But
you're
yeah,
not a bad person for not
right.
sharing with a friend when you have celiac disease. Like,
Yeah.
that's just part of it.
Yep, you have a real reason. It's not like it's
Yep.
not like you're being an only child.
Hey! I'm that too. Sometimes I'm scared I'm coming off as just an only child, but I'm like, no, no, no. This is because of my celiac disease. I promise. I think that's kind of it
Yeah, I
for
feel like
today.
that's all we
Yeah.
wanted to talk about.
Yeah, that's kind of our introduction to us and what celiac disease is like for us. And if you relate to any of these things, let us know.
Yeah, yeah. Please, do you have your own snack bag? What kind of snacks do you like to pack? Do you share drinks? Or
Because you probably shouldn't. Get your own straw.
And if you have any questions too, if you have any questions about celiac disease, about the process, any of that, we can answer. We also have a team of scientists that we can ask
Yes.
about, and get a real
Yes.
answer for you. But
Totally.
yeah, should we
Yeah.
tell them what we're going to talk about next week, or should we leave that a secret?
I think we'll leave that a secret, but
Ooh.
we'll see you soon. We're gonna keep this series going.
Yeah.
But we'll talk to you about all sorts of different things that intersect with celiac disease and our lives.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for joining us, and see you next time on... We can do this.
Celi-Yap!
Celi-Yap.
Celi-Yap! Celi-Yap, yap, yap.
Celi-Yap.